Hello, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can use conditional logic to control the output of a link. So when might this be useful? Let's say you're building a block and you want to add an image to your block as well as a way to enter a link, and you want that image to link to whatever URL you enter. So what you might do is wrap the image within an anchor tag. However, what's going to happen is when you try to select the image in the editor, it's also going to trigger the link. So you might want to use conditional logic to only output the link when the block is viewed on the front end and not output it on the back end, so that it doesn't get triggered when you're working with the image in the page editor. So to demonstrate this, I'll just create a very simple block just so we can see how it works. So let's just create a new block. And we'll add a couple attributes. We'll add one to store the URL that we want to link to. And then we're going to have an image. So we'll add a number attribute for the image ID. And let's just make a very basic block. We'll add a div. And we'll add our image, assign it to the image ID. And let's hit save. And so let's see what this looks like now. Okay, so here's our block, very basic. Just allows us to select an image. But now let's say we want to be able to link that image somewhere. So let's add a text field to our sidebar where we can enter the URL. And let's say what we want to do. Well, we want to link this image to whatever URL we enter. So the way we can do that is we can add an anchor tag. Change this to A. We need to add an attribute for the href. This is where the what we'll link to, and what we'll do is use our URL attribute so that it will link to whatever is typed into the URL. Something else we'll want to do too is add a rel attribute and set it to no follow. This is a security thing. If we don't do this, sometimes WordPress or plugins will add this automatically, and then if we don't add it, it causes the markup of the block to change, which will then give you an invalid content warning. So that's why we're adding this as well. And we want the image to be within our link, so we'll just drag the image under there, hit save, and see what it looks like now. So now if we click our block, this is what happens. Because that image is within a link and we try to click the image, that link gets triggered. So what we can do is use conditional logic to only output the link when the block is on the front end. One way we can detect if it's the front end view is if the block is not selected. So let's go back to our block. What we're going to do is we're going to add another image, and we're going to link it to the same image ID attribute. So both images link to the same thing. But what we're going to do is for this first image, we're going to add some conditions so that this will be the image that we'll use to select the image when the block is displayed in the page editor. So we're going to say block is selected equals true. So we'll only display this image component when the block is selected. And the only time the block can be selected is within the editor. Its block is selected is always false on the front end. So that means this will never be output on the front end. But what we want is when the block is actually saved or viewed on the front end, we want the linked version to be output. So we'll click on the link or the anchor tag, and we'll add a condition here. And we're going to say block is selected equals false. So now, whenever the block is selected, this image component will be displayed. And when the block is not selected, either when it's not selected within the editor or when it's viewed on the front end, because is selected is always false on the front end, then this will be output. And since we're adding the condition to this anchor tag, anything nested underneath it will also not be output because this entire element will not be output. So let's hit save and see what it looks like now. Okay, so now we can actually click into our block. It doesn't trigger the link because all we have is an image component. And so we can select an image and we can enter a URL. And so now when we view our page, we have our image and it's linked. I hope this video makes sense and is helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below or contact us at wickedplugins.com.